In March of 2017, a single-engine small plane crashed just after 11 p.m. in a remote jungle in Ontario, Canada. However, when search and rescue personnel arrived on the scene for the operation, they were unable to find any pilot or passengers in the wreckage of the crashed plane, and this bizarre crash instantly drew widespread public attention, even being referred to as the ghost plane. As the investigation deepened, police gradually realized this was no ordinary plane crash, and the truth behind it was even more unexpected to everyone. Jian, 27 years old at the time, was a Chinese man from Michigan, USA, born in Changchun, China, in 1990. Jian hailed from a scholarly family where both parents were highly educated intellectuals who prioritized education. So Jian grew up in a strictly disciplined environment. Under his parents' strict guidance, Jian received an excellent education, becoming an academic top student. And in 2007, with outstanding grades, he was admitted to Tsinghua University, which many students only dreamed of, where he majored in automation and focused on automatic science and technology research. In June 2010, Jian joined Baidu as an intern engineer, responsible for statistical work in the online advertising department for 3 months. In July 2011, Jian graduated from Tsinghua University with a Bachelor of Science degree, after which his parents sent him to the United States for further studies, settling in Ann Arbor, Michigan. Jian pursued a PhD at the University of Michigan School of Information, majoring in human-computer interaction, artificial intelligence, and natural language processing. During his PhD studies, Jian also worked as a software engineering intern at both Google and Microsoft. Between 2010 and 2016, Jian published numerous papers, one of which was cited thousands of times. He was not only excellent in academics, but also an experienced pilot. He held a U.S. private pilot license and belonged to the University of Michigan Flyers Club. Jian was dedicated to aviation, having flown to Detroit, Puget, and San Francisco multiple times, and enjoyed taking friends for sightseeing flights. Jian was the pride of his relatives and friends, who firmly believed he would complete his studies and return to China with a bright future. Jian was scheduled to graduate in 2017 and hoped to work in aviation safety upon graduation. However, after one flight trip, Jian vanished without a trace, and the truth behind his disappearance shocked the Chinese community in the United States. On March 15, 2017, at 11:38 p.m., a single-engine Cessna 172 model small plane crashed near the jungle area about 60 kilometers east of Manitouwadge, Ontario, Canada. Search and rescue personnel rushed to the scene immediately after receiving the news to begin the operation. Rescuers found the crashed plane severely damaged, but there was no pilot or passenger in the wreckage, only a wallet, a tablet computer, and other personal belongings. Initially, rescuers assumed that the surviving pilot and passengers might have walked out to seek help after the crash. However, upon careful examination, they failed to find any footprints in the surrounding snow, as if they had vanished into thin air, leaving them very puzzled. Later, the police determined that the crashed small plane belonged to the University of Michigan Flyers Club. According to records, the single-engine Cessna 172 model plane had been rented approximately 4 hours before the crash by a 27-year-old Chinese man named Jian, a PhD student at the University of Michigan and a member of the University of Michigan Flyers Club. At 7:12 p.m., Jian piloted the plane from Ann Arbor Municipal Airport. The flight plan he submitted was to fly from Ann Arbor Municipal Airport to Harbor Springs Airport in northern Michigan, a flight time of about an hour and a half. However, Jian seemed not to follow the original planned route, but flew towards the lake region in the northeast, crossing the border. According to the weather report for that day, the weather in Ontario, Canada, was affected by a severe winter storm. Southeastern Ontario experienced heavy snowfall, with an accumulation depth of about 15 centimeters, and there was a blizzard with snow fog during the night, leading to traffic paralysis, several traffic accidents, and canceled flights in some areas. Therefore, the police speculated that Jian might have encountered extremely poor weather conditions on his way to Harbor Springs Airport, lost his sense of direction, and ultimately caused the crash. But one thing puzzled the police. If Jian had indeed crashed due to the weather, his body should have been found in the plane wreckage, but it was not. Furthermore, the plane was not equipped with a parachute, and the only two exits were very small main cabin doors, making it unlikely that he had escaped by jumping out, making the entire incident even more perplexing. Although the police had deployed a large number of officers for aerial and ground searches for 2 days, they still could not find any trace of Jian. The vice president of the University of Michigan Flyers Club stated that Jian was not a novice. He had rich flying experience and was an excellent pilot, fully capable of skillfully flying the plane, and should not have crashed due to adverse weather. This bizarre plane crash attracted widespread public attention, and the media even used the term ghost plane to describe the accident. Since Jian's body had not yet been found, the police could only temporarily list him as a missing person. However, as the investigation deepened, the police uncovered some clues. The police found that the crash plane had no fuel remaining, meaning the plane crashed after running out of fuel. Moreover, the plane had been set to autopilot mode before the crash. Therefore, the police had reason to suspect that Jian intentionally set the plane to autopilot mode and boldly surmised that Jian was not even on the plane at the moment of the crash. He likely jumped from an altitude of 8 kilometers midway through the flight. The police believed Jian's act of jumping was suspected suicide, and the chance of him being alive was very slim. Why would such an excellent Jian choose a path of no return? His wife came forward to reveal the untold truth behind it. Xia was Jian's wife. Like him, she was from China and also an academic top student. Xia graduated from Tsinghua University and was Jian's schoolmate and major mate. The two shared common topics and hobbies and naturally developed a romantic relationship. In 2011, Xia and Jian graduated from Tsinghua University and then went to the United States for further study together. A year later, Xia graduated from the University of Michigan with a Master of Science degree in Human-Computer Interaction, while Jian continued his education, pursuing a PhD. After graduating, Xia worked as an intern in different companies to gain experience and became a senior designer at an artificial intelligence company in 2016. After Jian's disappearance, Xia found a suicide note he left at home, which read, "Don't be sad about my departure. This is my intention and my relief." Xia confessed to the police that Jian, who appeared cheerful on the outside, had repeatedly expressed suicidal thoughts. He had been suffering from severe depression for a long time, and the root of it all stemmed from the strained relationship with his parents. Jian had been under tremendous academic pressure since childhood, as his parents had high expectations for him, causing him to grow up in a very strict environment. Fortunately, Jian eventually lived up to the expectations, getting admitted to the dream university, Tsinghua, and becoming the pride of his parents and relatives. To allow Jian to focus on his studies, his mother specifically quit her job and rented an apartment near the school, concentrating on accompanying Jian until he graduated from university. Afterward, Jian was sent to the United States to study abroad. In 2016, Jian and Xia, who were about to graduate, found well-paid jobs locally, and Jian conceived the idea of staying in the United States to develop his career, so he informed his parents of this idea. Unexpectedly, his parents strongly opposed it, calling him unfilial and a disgrace to the family. Since then, his parents cut off all contact with him. Jian felt depressed about this, always believing he had failed to properly handle the relationship with his parents, which became a knot he could never untie. In late 2016, Jian once posted on his personal social media platform, stating, "I only recently realized that the rate of depression among PhD students might be severely underestimated. It's not necessarily like this in academia. Every PhD student should be happy. I believe this issue has caused a huge negative impact on the overall productivity of academia." He later expressed similar sentiments on Twitter. "When I wake up from depression, the whole world becomes so beautiful." Before his suicide, Jian seemed to have already shown signs of being tormented by depression. Long-term academic pressure suffocated Jian, and his parents cutting off contact became the final straw that broke him, forcing him to choose a path of no return. In September 2017, half a year after Jian's disappearance, Xia filed an application with the Washtenaw County Circuit Court. Xia wrote in the petition, "All evidence suggests that Jian jumped from an altitude of 8 kilometers before the plane crashed, and there is no possibility of survival." Because she lived in San Francisco and Jian's parents were in China, making it difficult for her to handle Jian's affairs after his death. She hoped the court could quickly declare Jian deceased so she could manage his property and insurance company compensation. On October 5, 2017, although Jian's body had not yet been found, the Washtenaw County Circuit Court still declared that Jian, 27, had died in the plane crash and formally issued Jian's death certificate. Xia's actions immediately sparked discussion among many people. Some accused Xia of doing this only to quickly obtain compensation, but another group understood Xia's situation, believing she was simply facing reality and rationally dealing with Jian's property and compensation. In traditional Chinese customs, death without a whole body has always been a taboo for them. Only by being buried can the deceased find peace. However, Jian was now missing, neither seen alive nor found dead, and no one knew where his body was, a mystery that took 4 years to solve. On September 9, 2018, a man in Tittabawassee Township, Saginaw County, Michigan, accidentally discovered a set of human bones wearing fragments of clothing while checking his house's surveillance footage. The police sent the bones for testing and quickly obtained a DNA profile, but were never able to find a match and could not determine how long the bones had been stored there. Initially, the University of Michigan laboratory speculated the deceased was Caucasian or Hispanic and had died from severe blunt force trauma, but these conclusions were quickly overturned. The bones were later sent to Othram Incorporated in Houston, Texas, for testing. Othram is a forensic genomics company specializing in using advanced DNA sequencing technology to analyze incomplete DNA samples to help police solve cold cases or identify unknown human remains. After analysis, Othram confirmed that the bones belonged to an Asian person. However, even though the bones were confirmed to belong to an Asian person, the lack of clues meant the true identity of the deceased could not be confirmed. The human bones were stored in the laboratory until December 2021 when the situation took a turn. A police officer, while flipping through missing person files related to Michigan, accidentally saw Jian's missing person file. He quickly recalled the bones found in Tittabawassee Township 3 years earlier and suspected the remains were the missing Jian. He immediately sent Jian's dental records to the laboratory for comparison, finally confirming that the remains were indeed Jian, who had been missing for 4 years. After 4 years, Jian's case finally came to an end. However, when the police informed Jian's wife and his parents in China of the news, hoping they would handle Jian's remains, his parents coldly responded with only one sentence: "Just leave him in America. That was his own choice."